The dietary guidelines need to be changed so that the dairy recommendation is removed entirely. As I said, dairy is not a food, it's a material. And, you can choose to do it, but you don't have to. And because of the health consequences, you shouldn't. I made the switch for good.
Wow, you really tell it like it is, Dr. Mills. You don't mince words, and everything you say is backed by science and also experience because you've been vegan for a long time. Can we start off just by learning from you how you became vegan and a vegan doctor advocating for a plant-based diet?
I completely get that we were all raised to believe that milk was quote unquote the perfect food. It
Mm-hmm.
seems benign, it's nice and white, and it seems
Right.
friendly.
Oh, God.
and and nothing could be further from the truth. So yeah, it takes some exploration for people to understand exactly what is wrong with dairy foods, why they're so inappropriate for our health.
Right.
And let me just say parenthetically so that people understand this. When I was vegetarian, I still rarely, I never touched milk, yogurt, or any of that because I was so lactose intolerant that if I ate that stuff at all, I would be sick as a dog within a couple hours. And I did at that time include some dairy cheese, but even that was infrequent. So I was, I might not have been completely vegan, but I was near vegan.
Mm-hmm. Okay, here's the first one. Milk is good for me. It has balanced nutrition.
Sure. Okay. For me, I think the easiest way for people to understand why milk is not appropriate for adult mammals is to step back and understand what milk is, what it's designed to do, and then they can appreciate the problems associated with it. So the question is, what is milk? What is it meant to do? What is it designed for? Milk or milks, more properly, are fluids produced by the female of various mammalian species to do essentially three things: to give energy to their babies, to stimulate growth in their babies, and to also stimulate immune function in the babies because the babies are born small, they need to grow. They are born with immature immune systems. Their immune systems need to ramp up to protect them from all of the things that are in the environment. And based on the growth rate of that particular species, it will have more or less protein in it. So, for instance, I wish I could show you a chart that I have that compares various mammalian milks. It looks at the milks of carnivore species versus cows and humans. And one of the striking things you immediately notice is that carnivore milk has a lot more fat and a lot more protein than either cow's milk or human milk. But the reason that's the case is that anybody that's seen a baby puppy or a newborn kitten knows that they're born at a very immature stage of development. They need to grow very rapidly. Dogs, cats, wolves essentially reach maturity in about a year. And so they need a lot of protein because they're putting on a lot of tissue. Humans and even cows are actually slower growing and therefore don't need as much protein in their milk. And so, for instance, cows actually take about 3 years to reach full development. And cow's milk does have more protein in it than human milk. Humans actually are very slow growing. So our human breast milk actually has probably the lowest percentage of protein of all mammals in existence. But then again, we're the slowest growing. So we don't need a lot of protein. And in fact, because too much protein can stimulate problems with tumor development and diabetes, heart disease, a whole host of problems, you shouldn't be taking in more protein than you need. But one thing human milk does have compared to the milks of other species is it has proportionately more sugar in it. But that, again, is appropriate because the human brain and even the brain of a human baby is proportionately much bigger than any other species, and the brain uses nothing but sugar for its metabolism. So, therefore, human breast milk is designed for human babies. Cow's milk and the milks of other species are not. And so, when you ingest cow's milk, particularly as an adult, you are taking in a large amount of animal protein that starts to stimulate cancer causing what are called oncogenes or cancer causing genes because they're trying the protein is trying to stimulate your cells to grow, to grow, and they shouldn't be growing. They should be quiescent. And that is why the habitual consumption of cow's milk is associated with a number of.
Can I stop you there and ask a question that goes right to what you were saying? So, and a next question might be something along the lines of, well, maybe I won't drink it, but it's good for my kid. My kid needs it to grow, because you just said that one of the 3 things that cow's milk does is stimulate growth. Well, that sounds good. That sounds good to most mothers. Oh, yes. Well, Johnny's trying to grow and we want him to be big and strong. So,
strong like an ox, right?
Yeah, exactly. We're going to go into that later.
Oh, okay.
So what's wrong with it? It stimulates growth.
What's wrong with it? Why shouldn't Johnny drink cow's milk? Johnny shouldn't drink cow's milk because Johnny's not a little cow. When you, again, as I said, calves are growing at a significantly faster rate than human babies, and they need more protein. But more importantly, the type of protein that is in cow's milk is completely or very different than the type of protein that is in human milk. And the cow's milk proteins cause a number of health problems in children. They're strongly associated with the development of juvenile diabetes if cow's milk is fed to kids before they're a year old. But beyond that, kids develop what's called cow's milk allergy, where they get rashes and breakouts and gastrointestinal distress. They can also develop a type of an anemia that's associated with bleeding from their intestines due to an allergy to these cow's milk proteins. So cow's milk proteins are not meant for humans. They're meant for baby calves and should not be fed to human infants or children because they will cause problems. Furthermore, the type of fat that is in cow's milk is, again, very different from the type of fat that you find in human breast milk. You can make butter, you can make ice cream from cow's milk. You can't do that with human breast milk because the type of fat that is found in human breast milk is what's called unsaturated fat, whereas the type of fat that's in cow's milk is saturated fat, and that promotes a hardening of the arteries and a number of other health problems that, again, our children should not be exposed to.
So the growth, the stimulation of the growth, I get it now why it's not for human children. So for human adults, we have a whole nother host of issues when cow's milk is stimulating growth when you're 40. Like, I don't really need any more stimulation of growth. Why am I drinking this material, if you will, is in your words? But it can grow some pretty gnarly things in adult humans. What are some of those things?
Right. Human cells should be in a quiet phase because we've reached our full size. We are basically in a steady state system. When you bring in these dairy proteins that start to stimulate these cells to try and grow, what that in essence does is it actually can cause the cells to become cancerous. In particular, cow's milk is very high in amino acid, called leucine. High levels of leucine turn on a gene complex called TOR, T-O-R. TOR is associated with cancer development because those are growth genes. But again, in human adults, you really can't grow but you can stimulate your cells to start growing abnormally, and that results in tumor formation.
Hey, folks. Okay, back by very popular demand is our plant-powered plate fridge magnet, which you are going to receive for free if you leave us a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening to this podcast on. So here are the details. Just write your quick review. Does not need to be long, does not need to be a whole story. Just be honest and speak from the heart. Then take a quick screenshot of the review you wrote and email it to us at podcast@switchforgood.org. That's podcast@switchforgood.org. And include your mailing address so we can send you a power plate. We are doing this because the more reviews we garner, the higher we go in search results, which means more folks will learn about our podcast. So the power is in your hands. Leave us a review and zoom, your power plate arrives at your doorstep.
So thank you so much for tuning in today. If we helped you in any way, then click the subscribe button and let's keep hanging out together. We have so much more to share with you.
And if you need more information on actually making the switch for good, please visit us at switchforgood.org for loads of info. And you can subscribe to our mailing list where you will receive all sorts of super cool gifts, discount codes to our very fave dairy-free products, and a lifetime of powerful health tips.
So join us on the journey to switch for good. This is the future.